Well, good morning, everyone. We are back. Week 1 is in the books. Monday Night Football is coming. We're recording here now Wednesday, and we're going to prepare for Thursday Night Football. But as always, I have both Jimmy over in Phoenix as well as Jed over in the suburb of Illinois. Welcome, everyone.
Morning.
Morning.
Anybody win this week?
Actually, I was going to say, before we start with the news of the week, Jed and Jim, what was the one thing that stood out for you for week 1 as you reflect on week 1?
Well, Jimmy and I were just talking before we started. I think two things. So one, I had said at the beginning of the year, there's always a couple teams I don't like, and the Browns and Washington were those teams. I'm still sticking with the Browns, even though they pulled off a win. I'm not a fan, but Washington, boy, that was a revelation, especially Carson Wentz. A lot of points there. Carson Wentz and Curtis Samuel, second wide receiver there, are probably two pretty popular pickups this morning. And I think that's legit. I think, especially given the NFC East over there, like he's got plenty of defenses he can carve up, has a pretty good matchup this week if you need a buy-in for Dak Prescott. But I think that Washington team is one. And then the other big one for me was Saquon Barkley. Anyone who rolled the dice on Saquon Barkley, you probably got him decently late, maybe second round, maybe even third round. And man, he looked good. Now, of course, he has to stay healthy. But if he does, I mean, that was a top 3 performance. So he looked really strong.
I mean, the other thing, I was watching the Saquon Barkley game. Brian Daboll, who used to be the offensive coordinator for Buffalo, is now the coach for the Giants, and he's actually pretty good, right? So I was like, oh, I actually forgot about that. That could have been a big turning point because they changed the offense. They made him back as the focal point of the offense versus making Daniel Jones the focal point, right? So now you're right. The secret is, can you protect him? Because it's usually around 3, 4, 5 in the last couple of years. That's when he's gotten injured as well too. I think the two surprises for me. James Robinson, he came out of nowhere, 11 rushes for 66 yards. He had 1 touchdown, and then he scored close to about 17 fantasy points. And then the other team to watch was Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks. I think I caught the end of the game, but no one really anticipated them to beat the Denver Broncos. And even DK Metcalf had 7 receptions out of that game. So it might be something there for the offense for Seattle.
Yeah, that one we had to see. I mean, I watched the whole game, and I was surprised at how much hate there was for Russell Wilson. I mean, he brought them a Super Bowl all-time leading quarterback and they just booed him. And you could tell the team really wanted to win. So apparently now there's articles coming out that he wasn't that well liked in the locker room. Sherman came out and was pretty critical of him. So
Sherman always didn't like him though.
Yeah, I would just hold out, though. I'm saying that I think Seattle played a little bit above what they probably normally will do because they just were jacked up and juiced up. But it was DK Metcalf looked good. Geno Smith, he had some nice plays. So I don't know, you just have to wait and see.
Mm-hmm. Oh, especially I had a chance to – I could have won $40, right, on bet MGM. If Will Dissly scored a touchdown – and then Seattle won. And I said, that's okay. I'll pick Javonte Williams scores a touchdown and Broncos win. And so that just did not work for me. That did not work for me.
The Javonte Williams, I didn't watch it. How did he do this week, Javonte Williams?
He did okay. He got more. Now, Melvin Gordon got more carries, but Javonte Williams caught more passes out of the backfield.
Yeah, I thought a lot of the running backs, that was where, there were a lot of interesting storylines. But I would just say don't, be patient. That's what we've been saying all along. Week 1 and week 2, things are just squirrely. Like the Packers are not what they looked like in this game. I expect, unfortunately, they're playing the Bears. I think they're going to play pretty well. But that's just a mirage. The week 1 is always a little bit squirrely.
Well, this actually leads us to the great thing in terms of our news and notes and headlines of the day. Jed, I'll go with you. Matt LaFleur, 8 touches for Aaron Jones isn't good enough. Aaron Jones had 5 rushes for 49 yards. He actually had 3 catches out of the backfield for 27 yards compared to A.J. Dillon, 10 catches for 45 yards, but out of the backfield, 5 catches for 46 yards. And you know what? A.J. Dillon clearly outplayed Aaron Jones. But other than that, the entire offense for Green Bay was terrible, and Aaron Rodgers was terrible.
Well, I wouldn't say AJ Dillon outplayed Aaron Jones. I would say they went to him more. But if you look at, I think the good news is Jones looked good. It's just that they went away from him and they were trying to bring in Dillon, especially in those passing downs. So I do think if you drafted Aaron Jones, I have him on one team. I think you have to be a little bit concerned, but you just got to ride it out. I mean, Aaron Jones, you knew that Dillon was there and he was going to take some touches, but I think Jones's talent will still play out and still win out in the end.
You know what I don't like about Aaron Rodgers? If you watch that game, you can see all the reaction on his face. Every time a receiver missed a ball, every time they did a mistake, you can tell that he was upset by it. And sometimes I feel like, I mean, you've got all these rookie wide receivers. If you keep showing your frustration with them, they're going to feel it, you know? And I felt like they just didn't catch on. After that first pass to Christian Watson, where he missed it for that touchdown, it was like downhill from there.
Well, he intentionally, both him and Dobbs, when they made a mistake, then Rodgers just refused to throw to them until the very, very last couple drives. I mean, outside of Wisconsin, I don't see how anybody can like Aaron Rodgers. I mean, the guy just looks like a jerk. He acts like a jerk, and he just, I mean, I don't see anything likable about the guy.
Yeah.
Jed, he did get a better haircut, though.
Yeah, he did. I will agree with that. He looks better.
Yeah. Jim, now in terms of wide receivers as well, too, Tunyon, 3 catches, 36 yards. Dobbs, Watson, going forward, are you even planning on starting
Lazard back?
anyone besides Aaron Jones?
Lazard's supposed to be back.
Lazard's supposed to be back.
Yeah, he's supposed to be back for week 2.
Yeah. So that's the guy. I mean, if he's sitting on your waiver wires, pick him up. I mean, Lazard I'm sure Rodgers is going to just pepper him constantly because he's just desperate for someone he can trust. So I would play Lazard.
I mean, look, they've got 3 veterans, right? They got Lazard, they got Watkins, and then they've also got Randall Cobb. My guess is if they're going to go towards those 3 first, and then Watson and Dobbs, they're going to take some time, those 2.
Hey, Jim, on the other side, Minnesota Vikings, we can sit there and talk about Justin Jefferson all day. The guy that I actually want to talk about is Adam Thielen, 3 catches, 36 yards. Do you think this is going to be the norm that we're going to see for Adam Thielen? And everyone will have high hopes for Irv Smith as a tight end. He didn't catch anything.
Yeah, so I was watching an interview yesterday at ESPN. They were interviewing the coach of the Vikings, right? And they said for some reason their plan was to get it straight towards Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson. Those were the 2 people that they highlighted. And so as a result, they're hoping in the weeks coming up, Adam Thielen as well as Irv Smith is going to be a bigger part of the plan because they have high hopes for Irv Smith. I don't know. I'm not high on Adam Thielen, to be honest. I think Justin Jefferson is really going to be the guy they're going to target. And I think in the red zone, it's going to be Irv Smith. But I don't know. You never know. Like Thielen every year comes out pretty good. And I always never think anything's going to come from him.
This is a good headline, Tommy.
Jaylen Johnson's Bears beat Trey Lance by making him play quarterback. The Bears were very impressive, didn't you think, Jed? Effort.
Yeah, no. I thought they looked good, but I will say I think the weather played a factor.
Oh, the weather was bad.
Yeah, I think being, that actually helped the Bears because I think those kind of, sloppy, low-scoring defensive games just play to, Chicago's strengths. So I think, Trey Lance didn't look great, but I mean, give the guy a break. It wasn't a great conditions to throw in.
Yeah. Now, Jed, did you find it ironic the Chicago Park District announced that they put on a brand new turf? And I'm sitting there, okay, finally they put on brand new turf. And after the Bears decide that they're going to move it on, now you start putting everything in.
Well, but not only that, now you see that, they have new turf, but the drainage system sucks. So, to me, the Bears are gone.
Did you see how wet that field was? I mean, it was disgusting.
Oh, when they slid at the end, if you saw the end of the game, when they won, they all ran down like a slip and slide and just slid into the end zone. I mean, that to me, the Bears should be leaving, and hopefully they will move to Arlington Heights. That's what I'm hoping. I think it'll be a much nicer scenario for the Bears. I think it'll ultimately help the team. I think it'll be a better situation for the team. But nice win though.
Yeah, you got to give it to the Bears though, right? Like they didn't make any mistakes. Their defense did really well. Fields did just enough to win the game. The only disappointment, Mooney didn't do anything. Kmet didn't do anything. Montgomery didn't do anything, right? So you had like Pettis, the wide receiver. You had Herbert as the running back. So hopefully this week 2 will give you a better indication of what the Bears are capable of.
Yeah, the Herbert, Montgomery situation is interesting. Everyone had been talking about it, and it did play out that Herbert did look better, but he had a lot fewer carries than Montgomery. But we'll see, because if they do ever make that switch to where Herbert has more carries, then he could definitely pay out.
Yeah,
do you guys trust Herbert?
Yeah, Khalil Herbert got the 1 touchdown. Jim, I've been seeing you try to trade Darnell Mooney, and you've expressed in the past that you want to trade Mooney. Does that mean that you just don't have high hopes for Mooney going forward?
I think part of it is I just don't have high hopes on Justin Fields, right? It's up and down, and I want consistent points every week. Even if it's like 9 or 15, I want to see consistency. Mooney's just one of those players. 1 week you might have like 2 or 5, right? And next week you might have 20. And I just don't know if I can trust something like that.
Yeah. Jim, thoughts? You know what? We just went through Aaron Rodgers. Adam Thielen, new offense was attacking. We talked about Minnesota. Elijah Mitchell on IR visit with free agent backs. They just signed Marlon Mack. Are you even looking at Marlon Mack and picking up on your waiver wire this week?
No. But are we ever surprised that Elijah Mitchell is hurt? I mean, when he got hurt, I was like, of course he did.
That's not nice. Yeah, I think Jeff Wilson Jr. is probably one of the most popular pickups this week. But Jimmy and I were talking about, he gets hurt too. And so you just got to see. I mean, obviously the San Francisco 49ers scheme is a really good scheme for running backs. So whoever ultimately ends up as the starter is going to be valuable, but you just are rolling the dice no matter what. But I think for this week, Jeff Wilson Jr. is not a bad pickup.
But don't you think they have Debo? I mean, don't you think Debo's going to end up taking a lot more of those carries?
That was the other thing is I remember I kept saying I did not think they would do that, but he sure did. He took up, once Mitchell went out, they started using Debo in that kind of scenario. And so that would be really interesting. Remember, his contract is set up to where if they keep doing that, he's going to be making a lot more money. And so I just thought they wouldn't go that route, but it looks like they might.
Mm-hmm. Deebo Samuel, 8 rushes for 52 yards and a touchdown. Also, he'll cost 2 catches for 14 yards as well, too. George Kittle probably will come back in week 2. But other than that, hey, you know what? The last 3 years, Jen and Jim, all the running backs for San Francisco have always been injured, whether it's Mostert and now even with Elijah Mitchell as well, too.
Okay, so here's my thing for a dynasty. I'm trying to pull up. Give me a minute. Who's that running back for San Francisco?
While you're going through that, let me ask Jed what his thoughts are on this. Brandon Staley on Keenan Allen as we look into Thursday night football. It's not looking great for Thursday. Hey, look, Mike Williams didn't do very much a lot of times. What are your thoughts on the San Diego Chargers?
So I think Williams is one. I have him on one team. He is one guy I am definitely not giving up on. And if anyone is giving up on him in your leagues, I would target this guy, especially if Keenan Allen is out. And Allen gets hurt pretty regularly. Mike Williams is the guy. I mean, he is a big dude, big target, and this Chargers team is going places for sure, right? A lot of people have them. Some people even have them in the Super Bowl. A lot of them have them going deep in the playoffs. So Mike Williams, I'm not giving up on him after just 1 week. Yeah, he had a pretty low production. I think he only had like 2 or 3, maybe 4 fantasy points, but I would play him this week for sure and see what happens.
Yeah. Austin Eckler, 14 carries, 36 yards. Keenan Allen, 4 catches, 66 yards. But, man, you're right in terms of Mike Williams. He only had 2 catches for 10 yards. But yet, at the same time, I own him in a couple of leagues. I am not giving him up. Keep playing him as well, too, because especially with this injury, he will do well. Jim, which running back were you looking at?
So, from a dynasty perspective, if I heard a lot of good things about Tyron Davis-Price in San Francisco. So they were saying pay attention to him from a dynasty perspective. But the other thing, too, is with Keenan Allen and the Chargers, I think this opens up for 2 potential people that you might want to pick up. If you need a tight end, Garrett Everett with the Chargers did really well this week, right? He had double-digit fantasy points. I think if Allen is out, they're going to need people to throw to, right? And so Everett's a good short distance receiver that they can throw to a tight end. And then the other person is DeAndre Carter, who's the backup wide receiver for Keenan Allen. My guess is he'll end up being the number 2 receiver if Keenan Allen cannot play. And it looks like most likely he won't play.
Yeah.
Hey, just by the way, we were talking about the Seattle Seahawks and how good they played.
Yeah.
Las Vegas has them as 10-point underdogs against the 49ers. So it just shows you what the bettors really think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jim, next one. Lions are favored for first time since November 2020. St. Brown and Morsley's DeAndre Swift look good. He looked very, very good.
I bet wrong this year. In a couple of my snake drafts, I was towards the end, and I had to choose between DeAndre Swift and Aaron Jones, and I chose Aaron Jones. And I wish I chose – I mean, it's the first week, right? Like you said, Jed, you never know what's going to happen. But DeAndre Swift looked good. The only concern I have about Swift, if you looked at it when he got to the goal line twice, what do you call it? Jamal Williams. Right. So that's the thing that you have to be careful of. Like, is Jamal Williams going to be the guy who's going to end up getting all those touchdowns?
Well, and injury with Swift. I mean, I agree. He looked good. But I mean, so Detroit is favored by 2.5 points against Washington in Detroit. Are you guys taking that bet? Like,
no, I'm taking Washington.
Yeah, I'm taking Washington all day. So I don't care if Detroit – and technically Detroit's not really favored. Yes, they are by 2.5, but just so you guys know, you know, the home team always gets 3 points. So technically Vegas is saying we actually think Detroit is worse than they should be, even though they're favored by 2.5.
Yeah. Jed, Jamal Williams, would you take him? Would you spend a waiver pick on him?
No, I wouldn't. I still think there's other splits we've talked about, like a AJ Dillon, for example, that I would still, you know, or James Robinson, great pickup, you know, out of Jacksonville. No, I wouldn't go with Williams.
Yeah.
Jim, what do you think of DJ Chark? Are you watching him and paying attention? 4 catches, 52 yards, and 1 touchdown.
Yeah, I am. Actually, there's 2 people. I think I saw you pick one of them up. If you need consistency and points, I look at Chark and I look at Landry in New Orleans. I actually think that Chark has something to prove this year. And we saw in Jacksonville, he's actually a pretty good receiver. So I mean, if you want 9-10 points, he would be a pretty good pickup.
Yeah, and I've always liked Landry. And you know, it was interesting. So Mike Thomas with 2 touchdowns, that was pretty surprising. I didn't watch the game, so I don't know how he looked. But you know, everyone was waiting for Olave, and Olave really didn't get anything. Instead, Landry was really the clear number 2. So I think that was an interesting one to pay attention to.
Thomas did not do anything. He had I think he had 3 targets his way by halftime, maybe 0 or 1 reception, but didn't hardly do anything. He did all of his production in the second half. So they said maybe it just took him some time to kind of get used to it. But I mean, he hasn't been playing for a while, so.
Yeah. On the flip side, Julio Jones, if you guys watched that game, he looked great. I mean, and
didn't I tell you Tom Brady's going to target the people he brings in?
Yeah,
Julio
and Godwin
Jones
went down. Yeah, Julio Jones looked really good. I expect them to continue to pepper him. So if you were sitting on him, no, it's not a bad play.
Yeah. Hey, Jed, Mike Tomlin encouraged by opening offensive performance. What did you think of a Mitchell Trubisky and how he did?
Hey, you got to give it to him. I mean, that was a pretty impressive win. Even though, you know, former Bear, we kind of don't expect much. I still think, you know, he puts a ceiling on, you know, all of the offensive players there. I think there's still too many mistakes. He still missed quite a few open folks. And so I'm not a huge fan. And then Najee Harris going down, you know, I think that's going to hurt them. And then we didn't see, everyone was looking about Pickens. We didn't see him at all. So personally, I'm still not really high on any of the Steelers, but good for Trubisky. I mean, nice win.
Harris is playing this week, he says.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, I mean, he says, right?
Yeah.
But you have to be worried, right? Like I have him on a couple of leagues, and there's a part of me that's a little worried that this injury is going to hamper him for the rest of the year.
Jim, Chase Claypool with Najee Harris out had 6 carries for 36 yards, but he also had 4 catches for 18 yards compared to what Jed was talking about. George Pickens, one reception for 3 yards. Are you looking at him at waiver? Is he someone you're interested in this week?
No, but I am watching it, right? I think I was listening to a couple of the commentaries, and they were saying that it's interesting when Harris went out, you would think that they would replace him with another running back, right? But they didn't. They actually replaced him majority of the time with Chase Claypool. So my guess is they were really looking at somebody to be a playmaker, and that's why they had Claypool. But now with Harris most likely coming back, I doubt that Claypool's going to be much. Pickens is the person I'm watching, but not Claypool.
One person for you to look at on your tight end waiver wire is Freiermuth. 5 catches for 75 yards, and he might be somebody probably on your waiver wire if you're looking for a tight end as well too.
Yeah.
Jed, here's actually the one: Jacksonville Jaguars. The day after, we're not going to panic. Look, we could talk about Trevor Etienne. We could talk about James Robinson. I actually want to get your thoughts on Christian Kirk. He seems to be the real deal. He has a great connection with Trevor Lawrence. What do you think about Christian Kirk?
No, I like Christian Kirk. Unfortunately, I don't see him sitting on a lot of waiver wires. A lot of people had him. When he was in Arizona, there was a lot of high hopes for that guy to be the clear number 2 and then maybe the number 1. So I think Christian Kirk is a great play if you have him. But again, like I said, in most of my leagues, actually in all of my leagues, Kirk was not sitting on the waiver wire.
Yeah. But the person that is sitting on the waiver wire that you might want to pay attention to is the number 2 receiver for Jacksonville, Zay Jones. They said he actually, I mean, if you looked at him, I don't have the stats pulled up right now, but he's actually pretty good. He had a pretty good day. And Lawrence even went out of his way in his press conference to say Zay Jones is going to be a good player for them in Jacksonville. He's actually out on quite a few of the leagues.
Just so you know, Zay Jones, 6 catches, 65 yards. Christian Kirk, 6 catches, 117 yards. Jim, also in terms of James Robinson, one, are you going to start Travis Etienne still as a flex player? But also, what do you think about James Robinson?
I actually would pick up James Robinson. I think if you heard the stories coming out before the game, they said, look, we're going to play James Robinson as much as we can, and it's going to be really up to him to decide whether or not he wants to come out of the game. And so if you saw, he played a majority of the game. What that means for me, though, is some worry as to, okay, what's going to happen to Etienne? I'll play Etienne again another week just to see how it goes, but I am keeping an eye out.
Yeah, and I'm not exactly. I'm playing Etienne as well. I'm not dropping him because even if I might bench him, but I'm definitely not dropping him because again, it's similar to Dameon Pierce in Houston, which is that I think the talent will win out in the end. A lot of these rookie running backs, if you guys remember, they don't come out of the shoot. Yeah, they don't play really well the first 3-4 weeks of the season. It's week 5 and week 6 when they flip and then give the ball over to them, and so that's what I'm waiting for.
Yeah, I mean, you're right because look at this past week, right? The top producers were the Saquon Barkleys of the world, Jefferson, Kelsey. The people that you would expect who are drafted in the first 2 rounds to do well. But usually somewhere in the middle of the season, 5 or 6, is when you start switching and you start seeing the potential people like the ETNs of the world come out and they start becoming the leaders from for fantasy.
Jed, if I had Saquon Barkley, I am trading him this week to see what load I can get because I am all in on the next one that I would love to get your thoughts on. Cam Akers. I am all in on Cam Akers.
Wow, you would trade Barkley for Akers?
Tom, I saw you were trading for Cam Akers, and I was like, are you sure you want to go for Cam Akers?
Cam Akers. I believe in Cam Akers.
All right, anyone listening, man, come on. You guys got to take Tommy's money. Because
I don't know. Darrell Henderson looks like the much better back. Akers just seems slow, but maybe not. But I don't know.
Yeah, Tommy, I would. It's not. I think he's still hurt. I think that's the bottom line. Is he has not fully recovered from whatever that soft tissue injury was. And I think Akers is probably one of, if not the biggest disappointment from week 1, because it's one thing to have low output, depending on, the game flow and everything, but he got 3 carries to, I think, how many did Darrell get? Like 15?
He had like 18 carries to 3.
So it was clear that the coaching staff was like, we're not going with this guy. So we got to see. I mean, if Sean McVay is saying that Akers is going to get a chance, that'll be important, but make those trades, Tommy. You might be right.
Look, I'm telling you guys, last year was a fluke. He was injured on the very first play. Don't you guys remember what he did in the very last full game, playoffs, when the Rams were? He did so well 2 years ago. Now, at the same time, I'm not counting last year with the Super Bowl and all that other stuff. Cam Akers, by the midseason, you're going to see the real Cam Akers come out. Along with J.K. Dobbins. Both of those guys I'm picking up.
Wait, who's the other one?
J.K. Dobbins.
J.K. Dobbins.
Oh,
that's interesting.
I'm not J.K. Here's Tom. I would trade if I were you. I would target an Antonio Gibson before I trade for Cam Akers.
See, I actually just traded. I just made a trade with Travis Etienne and Aaron Rodgers for Cam Akers and Joe Burrow. So I just made that trade because I need a better quarterback, and I really still have high hopes for Cam Akers.
Oh, that's nice. I like that. Yeah. It might work out.
All right. Speaking of Antonio Gibson, Jim, Commanders looking for more ways to use Antonio Gibson. Hey, he was not that bad. What did you think of Antonio Gibson?
Right, Jed, you and I were talking about it. Who the heck knew that the Commanders, right? Wentz did well. McLaren saved the day, had 19 points with a touchdown. Gibson did pretty well. Even Logan Thomas pitched in. Curtis Samuel, actually, funny enough, I picked him up because I'm hoping that he might be this year's Cordell Patterson because they used him both at running back as well as receiver. I don't know if he'll do well, but I was like, you know what? Last year we missed on Cordell Patterson. He might do pretty good, but I like Antonio Gibson. He actually might do pretty well this year, and we all didn't think he would.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I think for me, that's the biggest change from week one that I'm going to trust, which is that Washington is a place we can look to for some points. I think everyone was looking at Carson Wentz and was like, what a disaster in Indianapolis, expecting bad things. But the bottom line is he was still an upgrade at the quarterback position. And Antonio Gibson, Terry McLaurin, they're all the beneficiaries. And so even a Logan Thomas, I think. So I think Washington, remember, Washington plays in a really weak division. So there's a lot of teams they can beat up on. So I think it's not a bad move at all.
They did say Wentz did make a number of mistakes, but he did make it up. He scored 33 fantasy points. He made it up with a couple big plays.
Yeah. He threw for 313 yards, 4 touchdowns, but 2 interceptions. Dotson, the rookie, actually had 40 yards, but 2 touchdowns. Look, the one thing that I noticed is Antonio Gibson had 7 catches for 72 yards. Compare that with McKissick, who only had 3 catches for 20 yards. The only problem, just to watch, is the same problem that he has. He had 1 fumble, and so he tends to fumble, and so that's something to watch going forward.
Going back, seriously, you ready to pick Cam Akers over Antonio Gibson? I think Gibson will turn out to be the better player this year.
I think Akers has a higher upside. So in Tommy's defense, I would say that. If you supposedly, if I didn't watch the game, but supposedly even on his 3 carries, the description I heard was it looked like he was running in mud.
Yeah, he was very slow. Yeah, they said he was really slow.
Give it a couple of weeks, Jed. Hey, the Los Angeles, Allen Robinson did bad. The only one who did well was Cooper Kupp. Matthew Stafford didn't have a good game. All of that. Higbee didn't have a good game. Watch, the LA Rams will come back, and their offense is too good for you to stop them. I have high hopes for both Allen Robinson and Cam. Well, maybe not Allen Robinson, but Cam Akers definitely. Allen Robinson just could not have any separation at all.
Well, and Stafford, I think that is a concern. Stafford's arm, from all accounts, where he looked weak. And so we have to see, because if that is true, remember he had off-season surgery. If that is true, then actually they're going to turn more to the running game. So you could be right. Cam Akers could become more of a focal point. But I was concerned with the Rams, other than Cooper Kupp. I mean, obviously that connection is still there. Personally for me, though, I'll even say with Cooper Kupp, I still don't think that's going to continue. I don't think he's going to. I know he was number 1 last year. I don't even think he's going to be top 5 at the end of the year.
But they had 13 targets. I don't know if this is true or not, but I was reading an article about how they were talking about Robinson and I guess Stafford. I don't know if it's true, but Stafford one time during the game yelled back to the coaches and said that guy isn't even trying, and they were talking about Allen Robinson.
Wow.
Yeah, but I don't know. But they did not. He was on the field, but they didn't target him.
Wow.
Hey, let's go. Let's preview the Thursday night game, which is tomorrow. Jim, I know a lot of times you are very, very high on Pacheco. Look, Clyde Edwards-Helaire got 7 carries, but he got 2 touchdowns. Pacheco had 12 carries for 62 yards and 1 touchdown, but also a fumble as well, too. What's your thoughts on Pacheco? Is he somebody that you're going to start looking at and prioritizing?
Nah, I don't know. Helaire surprised me. He did really well, I actually did drop, and I didn't want to. but I did drop Pacheco in a couple of leagues because there was James Robinson, there was Jeff Wilson's of the world. There were some immediate players that I felt like I needed. I still think at the end of the day, when all the season is done, somebody like Pacheco, if the Hilaire goes down, will actually be really fantasy relevant. But I dropped him at least these weeks, partly to pick up James Robinson and a couple of these other players that were on the waiver wire.
Yeah, I think that was a good move, but I do still like Pacheco. I mean, personally, and I think he's still going to have value even with Clyde Edwards-Helaire healthy, because I think you can see the Chiefs have made a real effort to spread the ball, to not be, so kind of one-dimensional and locked in on one or two players. And I think Pacheco really fits their scheme well. So I saw that you dropped in Jimmy, and in my mind, I was like trying to figure out a way to make room for him because I love his passion.
There was two players I did not want to drop, right? I did not want to drop Dobbs, and I did not want to drop Pacheco and Olave in a couple of these leagues. But at the end of the day, I saw Robinson was still out there. Dotson was still out there. Curtis Samuel was still out there. And I just felt like, at least for now, if you want to win, you have to be able to give up some of the future benefits for the immediacy. And I'd rather go for the immediacy.
Jed, I actually want to pick your brain, and I want to get your waiver pickups for both of you guys. With Chris Godwin injured for the next couple of weeks, what do you think of Julio Jones?
Oh, I love him. As I was saying, I think if you watch the game, he looked great. I mean, he looked like the old Julio Jones, had the speed, had the pickup, had the separation, has always had the size, of course. And the most important thing is Tom Brady likes the guy. I mean, he was throwing to him all the time. They even had him run a sweep. So that just shows you how involved they want him. And so I think he shouldn't be on your waiver wires. If he is, definitely go after him, because Godwin's going to be out probably. So should be good. Yeah.
Jim, who are you prioritizing this week that you picked on your waiver wires that people need to pay attention to?
Yeah. Okay. So here's the three, right? And I'll tell you two, and then the third one might be one you might want to debate. So the first two is Curtis Samuel, because I do think that he is this year's Cordell Patterson, right? The way that they're using him, the way they're looking at him, I'm taking a bet on him. And then also Jahan Dotson, 2 touchdowns, 40 yards. I think he showed pretty good chemistry with Wentz. And so I was like, look, if anything ever happens to McLaren, he's the guy who's going to be able to step up. And the third player that I picked up, at least in Yahoo, I didn't pick up in ESPN leaks because Yahoo has him listed both as a tight end and a quarterback, Taysom Hill. Especially if you need a tight end. I was like, look, you never know if Winston's going to go down. I'll pick him up, and then he'll be my tight end, but he's really playing quarterback. So I prioritized him in Yahoo because he's listed as both. In ESPN, he's only listed as a tight end.
I love that he's listed as, wouldn't we, QB tight end? That is the most awesome designation. I might pick him up just for that alone.
No, that's why I did it, because I was like, where else can you get a tight end who might be a QB?
I agree with those. Curtis Samuel. I mentioned Jeff Wilson Jr. again. I do think he's probably one of the hotter pickups. But you just got to see, he does have an injury history. But if you need a running back for week 2, I think he's probably one of the top targets. I will say, watch the Najee Harris situation, if he's playing or not. The guy behind him I have is Warren. Behind him in Pittsburgh. And that might not be, again, if you're looking for carries, if you're looking for a running back and there's not a lot out there, that could be someone you could fill in with as well. But also, I'll just say on the quarterback front, because I had Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott is out for they didn't put him on IR, so he should be back after 4 weeks. But I picked up Carson Wentz. It was between Carson Wentz and Jameis Winston were the two I was thinking of. And I went with Wentz mainly because he's playing at Detroit. And so I think there'll be a lot of points in that game.
Yeah. Now, I love the Taysom Hill, especially with the quarterback tight end as well, too. Jed, let me ask you a quick question. Are you worried about Ezekiel Elliott or CD Lamb, especially with the Dak Prescott injury?
100%. Well, we got to see. This, what's the name of that quarterback?
Cooper Rush.
Rush. Yeah. He was okay, so we got to see. But I think you got to downgrade both Zeke Elliott and CD Lamb especially. Zeke, it was interesting. I had Pollard as well, and so they did try to get both those guys in there. They could not get Pollard going for whatever reason. So Pollard is someone I'm unfortunately kind of benching. I'm not dropping, but I'm benching. But I think basically all the Cowboys offense, Dalton Schultz included, you gotta knock all those guys down.
The only thing is, don't you think, right, with Cooper Rush, they're not going to want Cooper Rush to get the ball. So they are going to try to push the running game.
To run.
So that's where I do think Zeke Elliott and Pollard actually might do pretty well. I do think Dalton Schultz is still going to get his points because if you saw even last year when Rush came in and Prescott was not playing, Schultz always gets those like 5 to 8 yard receptions, right? That's how far Cooper Rush is going to be able to throw. So I'm not worried too much about him. CD Lamb is the person I would worry about in that group.
Yeah. And they're playing the Bengals. So
Amari Cooper, are you dropping him completely?
I don't know if I'm dropping him, but I'll throw him in the bench and see what he does. But right now, I mean, it was surprising. Nick Chubb looks like a great runner, so I think they're going to lean on Nick Chubb. And it looks like they're also playing double sets, right, with Nick Chubb as well as also with Kareem Hunt, because Kareem Hunt ended up getting 2 touchdowns, and he had a pretty good day too.
Guys, the Browns are playing the Jets. So the Browns are going to play well. They're going to get their points. But to me, if you're holding on to Browns, I trade high after the first 2 weeks because it's not going to look good for the rest of the year, in my opinion.
So you would trade Chubb. You would try to trade Chubb.
Exactly. I would wait for he's going to get his touchdowns this week. He's going to get all the points that you could get the first 2 weeks, and then I would trade him.
Yeah.
Jets. Speaking of the Jets, did you see Joe Flacco, 307 yards that he threw? I said, I haven't seen this much output from Joe Flacco in ages.
Yeah, I didn't know he was still playing. No, yeah, I mean, that was, it was impressive, but he did miss. I mean, if you read through the script, apparently the guy missed quite a bit. But, there's some points to be there that we've always talked about garbage time, and that's important. Again, they're playing the Browns, so it should be a game. We'll see.
Yeah. Alvin Kamara, Jed, what are your concerns about him as well too? Didn't do well, and also your outlook on Michael Thomas.
Yeah, so that I think, Michael Thomas, I'll start there. I agree with Jimmy. I think he actually didn't do much. You still got to watch, though. I mean, his second half was good. Probably it's all about Jameis Winston and whether Winston can be a little bit more consistent. But yeah, with Kamara, I would be concerned.
He said that he was. Somebody said he was injured.
Chest muscle.
Yeah, chest muscle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that might explain it then, but New Orleans. If you looked at that game, first half versus second half, totally different story. I mean, the second half they started lighting it up, and Winston started connecting. So really, just everything goes with Winston, And I had high hopes for him. I felt like last year he had kind of calmed down some of the interceptions, but then in this game he was throwing a lot, but he still threw a lot of interceptions too.
I think their most consistent player is going to be Jarvis Landry, because I think they're going to do the big plays with Michael Thomas. Olave is going to take a few weeks to kind of get to where he should be, but Jarvis Landry is going to get your 14, 15 consistent points every week.
Yeah. One last thing, Jed. I also know that you have a meeting at 9:00. If for some reason Pittsburgh's defense is on the waiver wire, and I saw Pittsburgh defense on a bunch of waiver wires, make sure you pick up Pittsburgh as well too. Buffalo, Pittsburgh. I still have high hopes for LA Rams. And I leave my last thought for you guys as you guys look at waiver wires and also players. Don't drop Cam Akers. I love Cam Akers. Don't
trade him to Tommy. Just trade him to Tommy.
Yeah.
All right. Any last thoughts before we talk on Friday again?
No, looking for again. I would just remind everyone: don't go nuts. The first week, if you didn't win, don't do anything drastic. Let your first, second, third round draft picks play out, see how they go, and then after week 2, you can start making more moves. But just wait and see.
Yeah. And if you're willing to risk it, go after a couple of players that people may not want, like the Damian Pierces of the world, the Allen Robinsons of the world, the Ramondre Stevens of the world. They're good, consistent players, and people might not want them anymore. So
New England is a really interesting one. If you know New England, they always have problems with Miami. Did you guys know that Tua is undefeated against Bill Belichick?
No.
He's 5-0 against Bill Belichick. I was like, that's hilarious. But it's just because there's something about Miami that always gets New England. I expect New England to turn things around, this week. So we'll see.
Oh, and one last player I forgot to mention that who did really well, AJ Brown. I think he's going to be a stud. I mean, people are looking at him as maybe a 10th wide receiver. I think he might be a good chance to be top 5 here.
Top 5,
Yeah, AJ Brown and Michael Pittman. I'm so happy with both those guys. I think they really paid out exactly the way we were hoping. And so let's see, though, if it continues. But Philadelphia looks like the real deal, although their defense giving up 35 points to Detroit. I don't know about that, but still, it looks like Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown got something going.
From fantasy, who cares if the defense keeps giving up points? Jalen Hurts, they just need to score more points. So more points for your offensive guys.
Yeah.
All right. See you later.